And I think we've certainly learned that the New York Arbor School deserves all of our support and commitment so that we can meet their lofty goals of what they're trying to do with their students. So thank you so much.
So while they're doing that, I can use this time to tell you more about the timeline for the campaign. I might be cheating a little, but that's okay. So we'll launch the Optimized Bot at the end of May, and then our two challenges on food and fashion. The food challenge will be launched on June 18th, Sustainable Gastronomy Day, and then our fashion challenge will be launched in early August. Both will be spearheaded, the food by leading chefs that will share their sustainable food creations and then throw it to you all around the world to share your own creations. We will have videos and photos, etc., and we'll actually be featuring some of the contributions you share on UN channels as well. And the fashion will be the same. The fashion challenge will be spearheaded by lead fashion designers, not just here in the West, but also in the global South, that will show their upcycled creations, so taking old looks, turning it into new, whether it's shopping at a thrift store or taking something you already have in your closet and using it okay, I'm being told to shut up. But I had to take that opportunity to just share a little bit more about the campaign with you because I'm so excited. So un.org/actnow.
Thank you so much. So we always want to make sure that we allow time for interactive discussion. And so I now invite the attendees to please raise your hand to be acknowledged, and I will acknowledge you to speak. Please try to avoid common UN issues where the question asker speaks for 5 minutes. We'll try and keep comments to a brief period so our speakers can speak. Yes, gentleman on the right here, and then... Press the button on the bottom left of your, it looks like a speaker.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, much better. Okay. Hi. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I'm a climate activist. I have worked in partnership. We have a campaign called 2020 or Bust. And the campaign is designed to bring the climate crisis into the hands of ordinary people so that they can actually see the specific actions to take in the specific time frame to end it. And we've worked with the authors of the UNEP Emissions Gap Report, many great colleagues at the UN. And the fact of the matter is that if 500 million people over the next 2 years take specific carbon-reducing actions, we can actually get on track to ending the crisis. So we love working in partnership with you. We have an app called 2020 or Bust. It's the only app that actually puts the power to end the climate crisis in ordinary people's hands. Again, kind of in terms of what, like your program, you go in, log your actions. Everyone on the app is aggregated all around the world, but it's all inside of this next critical 2-year time frame. Because I applaud all of the work that the UN is doing, but we've got to be aware that it is grossly insufficient to ending the crisis in time. So that's why this next 2 years is totally, totally critical. We are bringing this to the ordinary people. We've got a campaign called Don't Let the Planet Get Hotter Than You. We are making ending climate change sexy, attractive. We're going to get to the people that watch the Kardashians, the people that would never come to a conference like this, because that's who's going to make the difference. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. We definitely want to impact families. 2020 or Bust. Download the app. Thank you.
All right. All right, yes, and the gentleman to your left.
The organizers of the event today. Just to also thank all our presenters, you guys are wonderful. Let us also inform the world that it's important that we also see how innovation, technology can also fuel our passion, our skills, and our talents. Over the years, we've noticed that the communication language pushes people away. People want to see, what can I bring as a cobbler? What can I bring as a high school student? I don't want to know the number of parts per million. How can I, in real time, be able to take part? How can I help the ordinary people as a farmer in Africa? And I think that the technology that we have today, if we can fuse it to include passions in arts, in music, passions in dancing, in painting, it will do a lot of things. 3 weeks ago, I designed an app that helps rural farmers in Africa be able to have a projection of what likely catastrophic events can take place. It's called a rep climb. It was launched in Sweden, and the app helps ordinary people trying to make sense of the environment now, because we know that agriculture is core to the Africa or to most vulnerable community. But we also know that the environment has a lot of impact on it. If they have a heads up of what lies ahead for them, they will be able to make informed decision. So I am so blessed to be here. I want to thank Ms. Awa for giving me the opportunity to come here with my team from across the world. God bless you all.
Great, thank you. All right, I see actually a student hand over here, so if you'll...
Need to decrease carbon emissions since over time the population of the earth is increasing. Shouldn't we be needing more carbon emissions to like grow more food for the population?
Great, thank you. So the question is, with our growing population, how can we expect to decrease carbon emissions with that growing population as well? As that should be expected to continue to grow, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I need more for it.
Do you want to?
No.
Send it to the professor.
Who would like to start? Tala? Okay.
Fantastic question. But I think when we look at climate, we have to look at it in a holistic sense, right? So addressing the climate challenge is a part of a whole. When it comes, my colleague here talked about the SDGs and how it is building blocks towards a better planet. So confronting the climate challenge means eating more sustainably. It means more responsible production and consumption. So even though populations are rising, there are opportunities where there is significant waste, there's significant pollution. We can look at those systems and address it. There are also areas where poverty is what's leading to some of the carbon emissions that we're seeing. As we address poverty, as we address production, those are elements that can help us reduce our carbon emissions.
No. Sorry. So I would add to that when we're thinking about carbon production and carbon emissions, that the goal doesn't have to be the complete eradication of carbon, but that rather we're thinking about how can we be responsible stewards of the world that we are living on. And I think we want to avoid the thought of what can often be talked about as a zero-sum game of we either have to have no carbon emissions at all or why bother at all. And I think we need to find that better middle ground of responsible use of carbon and finding a way to identify moderation and where we can avoid that waste that our speakers have spoken about and more efficient use of those resources that we have.
Kong. I'm here today with a small group of my fellow countrymen. Most of them are from mainland China. But the comment I'm going to make does not represent it's a purely personal one. In fact, it's a very quick comment on the use of plastic bag. Some of our extinguished speakers touched upon on that briefly, including the to clean or to recycle those plastic bags. I remember many years ago, there were big efforts to ban or to avoid the use of plastic bags. Now we are in 2019, and we are still talking about to clean the plastic bag. Shouldn't we completely ban the use of plastic bag? Yes. Thank you. You know, the reason that I propose this is every time when I saw my wife cleaning the plastic bag, I said, you are wasting the water. Water is also, we should save as much water as possible, but of course, it's better than dispose the plastic bag at one use. So nowadays, whenever possible, I will only use recycle bag, not plastic bag. Thank you.
We'll go up top, and then I'll come over to you next. Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So my comments are inspired by today's excellent presentations. I'm Scott Carlin from Long Island University, and I too seek holistic and healing solutions. I share today's passion for local and intergenerational action, and I encourage everyone to support the upcoming August DGC conference in Salt Lake City, where these conversations can continue. But I do want to comment, we have passed the moment of climate action. We have entered a dramatically new era. We live today in an era of climate emergency. The actions we take must not only reduce our impacts, but they must transform our way of life, especially in the industrial north. Most nations are not on track to meet the Climate Paris Agreement commitments. How do we accelerate those national efforts? How do we accelerate the efforts of our corporations and banks working in our own local communities? How do we use tools like the power of nonviolence to transform these structures in our world? Thank you.
All right, yes.
So my question...
Wait till it turns red, the light.
Almost. Give it a second.
There you go.
Okay. So my question is centered around rising economies and rising populations. Obviously, in Africa, that is becoming more and more industrialized, and the populations are going to rise. So how will the UN encourage the nations down there as they're developing to become more green? Will it be, I don't know, handouts, money, or will there be, I don't know, what are the solutions being proposed right now?
Great, thank you. Is that something? We're going to hold to respond on that. We'll get a couple more questions, and then we will answer as a collective. Yes, sir.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry. You'll be after this.
Thank you. How would all of you realistically convince people to completely change their way of living? Because I forgot who, but somebody said that changing this wouldn't be easy and it'd be a big sacrifice. How do you convince the people who aren't willing to change their way to do so? Because it can be really expensive and wouldn't really suit them, you know? But yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, yes. There you go. Oh. Wait till it turns red. There
Okay,
you go.
yeah, thank you. I am Ada Metaliu from Albania. I am part of an NGO, Team 54 project is called. I just wanted to add something related to our economy. We learned that economy in general teaches us how we can select the resources, the limited resources in our unlimited desires. But in reality, the problem is not that. The problem is that the economy nowadays is manipulating our ideas. We can survive even with limited resources. We don't want to have more food or more different kind of products or clothes, etc., to be happy and to satisfy ourselves. This is what I can say for nowadays. Thank you.
Yeah, straight ahead, and then we'll come over to you. I don't see where that. No, sorry, sir, the lady up front. I apologize. Go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thanks for being here today, everyone. I just wanted to say, as we think of these rising economies and populations, as was stated earlier, I would like to consider a way that we can incorporate opportunities for otherwise marginalized groups of people into restructuring these sustainable production and assembly lines. Our work with Global Fund for Widows has incorporated widows into value chains. It's been incredibly powerful in empowering these women who have no other opportunities. So would like to just bring that to the floor. Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to bring up another topic. You guys were talking about plastics and advocating, but you didn't say anything about like CSOs or PCBs in the water that are also really affecting it. So I was wondering if you're going to advocate for those topics in any way. Thank you. Do I turn this off?
Yeah, so we have to kind of sum up the questions, and then we're going to let the speakers just kind of start. We'll start with Tolu and move on down the line. Question about developing nations and industrialization and how we can think about the developing nations and how they can, what attempts can be made to develop in a green way, how to convince people to make difficult choices about the environment, and then the CSO, PCP, and water issue as well. So Tolu.
Thank you. So those that are oftentimes at the front line of the climate crises are not necessarily those that cause the climate crises. Those that are feeling its effects hardest are not the ones that are the biggest contributor to the problem. And so as we ask people to make sacrifices and to make change, it's important that, yes, we all do it together, but it's also important to make sure that those that are still at the front lines of creating this crisis have a lion's share of the responsibility when it comes to changing their habits and making those sacrifices. And I think in the West, that is something that can be done, and that is something that should be done. You look at the Global South, when you think about our campaign on upcycling and buying and not buying new, and you look at individuals in a lot of developing countries that are already doing that, right? But not by choice. They're recreating, using what they have because what they have is all they have. Whereas here in the US, 40% of the clothes that we have in our closets, we never wear. So I think there is an opportunity there for us to be a leader on this issue and to take our cues and to take our points from those that are already doing it right, even though they're suffering the effects of climate change the hardest.
So thank you so much for all of the fantastic questions. I think given the time, we can't answer all of them, but I'll do my best for what I can put forth. I think in terms of banning plastics, 600% for it. As an individual, I think as an organization, we really look to try to create opportunities for individuals to come to understand the impacts that plastics have on their environment. And through that mindset shifting, hopefully that creates more pressure on a policy level. And to answer Scott's question as well, maybe looking at how we can better collectively organize. I think a lot of times there's pockets of climate movements, whether it's frontline communities advocating and they message a certain way, and then there's different climate groups that come from like more of the private sector reform style, and how do we get everyone to really come together and communicate? And it's in finding those shared commonalities that I think we'll be able to find those final puzzle pieces that we need to push forward the momentum. Finally, I think to touch on just transition and equitable inclusion of vulnerable populations, I think with the momentum that we're seeing with the renewable energy field and space, we know transition is coming. Sustainability is the next forefront. It's our future. But how we transition isn't guaranteed. Is it going to be equitable and just and include people whose lives have been built on the fossil fuel industry? Are we including them in the transition to ensure that they aren't being left behind? If we do so, then I think we'll have a future that is bright and just. And finally, just last thing thing would be individual action is great, but how can we as individuals, if we're already doing all that we can in terms of individual behavior change, how can we facilitate the behavior change of others? It's not by telling others to change, it's really shining that light on how beautiful these changes have been for us and leading by example and creating spaces for others to experience that as well. Thank you so much.
So I only have 30 seconds, so, so I'll make it very brief. I just want to touch upon one thing about the rising population in certain areas. I think we have to look at, it's not, as others have said, it's not so much the population that is a problem, it's how our systems and how we produce. So when we look at some of those areas in Africa that don't have any infrastructure, it is actually the opportunity that when you are created a grid to provide electricity to a population, that you do it in a clean way. So in that way, the population can increase, but still, the energy that will be provided will be reducing greenhouse gas overall. So I think we have to look into this and innovation, as other speakers have talked about. And I just wanted to touch a little bit upon that idea of sacrifice, because I think we have to try to turn things around a little bit and necessarily talk about it in a negative way. We had an event some time ago with a speaker who has banned waste in their family, and they are basically living with just a few clothes that they can sort of repurpose, and they have found that the simplified life has brought them so much joy and so much more opportunity. They are saying we can travel anytime we pick our suitcase, put everything we have in our closet, and we are done. We can go. So we have to sometime, I think, look at the opportunities and not just the sacrifice.
Great. Thank you.
I would just emphasize the first word in our gathering here, families and climate action. I think in all these issues discussed today and issues raised, I think there needs to be family conversation and family experience around these issues. So it's through our families where we first learn about values. Values about what's right, what's wrong, how to care for the environment, how to do the right thing. And also our attitudes towards food, how we shop, what we shop. Are we involving our kids in making the shopping lesson? Family business. Small farms, family-run small farms. I mean, so think about these issues in family engagement in all of these domains, including family opportunities for getting involved in nature, like those family nature clubs, and family engagement in political action. I think that really needs to be important as well. So I think family could be woven into many of these issues. To address your question earlier, how do we get people to change? I think we need to really pay a lot of attention to family. Thank you.
So thank you all so much for attending today. I want to, of course, thank the organizers for this event, the terrific Renata Kazmarska, focal point at the UN for families. She is terrific and a joy to work with and is a great force for families. And then I also want to invite Awa Diallo from the Civil Society Department of Global Communications to provide our final ending to this great event. Thank you all for your attendance.
But I'm seeing the heads are shaking with the videos. But I really wanted to thank everybody for coming out today, for really having this really fantastic conversation. I really do apologize on behalf of the department and the unit for the technical difficulties. This auspicious meeting place that we find ourselves in, the United Nations, has a lot of firewalls. So sometimes and very frequently technology fails us. But I think what we really do value is this kind of face-to-face interaction that we've had today. I think all the questions and all the back and forth with the audience, I think, is really what makes the United Nations, and I want to say what makes my team very unique and really very ideal. So thank you. what I can say is that we will upload all the videos on the website of the Civil Society Unit so that everybody can take a look at it from there and act now. Thanks again to the panel for really, talking, I think, to the audience. That's what we value on this platform, to really speaking with people and getting that fantastic feedback. I want to thank my colleagues in DESA. It's a pleasure working with you, and we hope to continue sharing that word about the UN work globally. I want to thank you in the audience. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know I'm going to see you in Salt Lake City, right? Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic day. Woo! Thank you so much, everybody. I do apologize.